Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 7th Union County Public Schools Board of Education meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order, and we will begin with the invocation from Chaplain Vic Weaver. So Chaplain Weaver, if you want to unmute, we're ready for you. Oh, he can't hear?
Can I be heard?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Oh, and there y'all are. I love technology when I can get it to work.
Same here.
So are we ready?
We are ready.
Okay, I apologize. I wasn't listening to or couldn't hear what was going on.
Okay.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for your continued blessing upon us, both as individuals and as a body, as a board that is striving so hard during these turbulent times to be what we need to be what our community needs, and to be what the school system needs. And Father, we just ask that you continue to be with us and continue to bless us. And as our country goes through such a turbulent time, we ask that you just be with us as a country. Help us never to forget your promise to us that you would heal our land if we would just seek your face, pray, and let you lead and guide and direct us. Father, be with us. Help us to do what we need to do and to be what we need to be. And we're going to thank you and be careful to give you praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much for being with our board tonight. We really appreciate it.
May I ask a question? Have we got any idea when we might be able to be across the road? I say across the road because that's where I live, right across the road from the Career Center. Anybody know anything?
We were hoping to maybe start our in-person meetings back this month. I don't know if someone's vacuuming or what's going on, but I hear background noise. But Chaplain Weaver, we were hoping to be back in person this month, but with the spike in cases in Union County over the past couple of weeks, we decided to continue with Zoom on a month-by-month basis.
Okay, well, I'm good with either one, no problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to approval of the agenda.
Ms. Merrill?
Yes.
I'd like to request the addition of an item to tonight's agenda. And that item is entitled Reopen UCPS. I'd like to request that we add that as the new item 5 and move superintendent's report and the following items down one if we could.
Okay, we can do that, Mr. Sides.
Thank you.
Any other amendments? Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda.
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, the agenda passes 8-0. Okay, that brings us to public comments. Our policy states that you have to have public comments sent in before 24 hours before the meeting. We had several people send in comments today, and we have decided to include those comments even though they did not meet our board policy. So I believe Mr. Haley did get this in well before the 24-hour mark, so we greatly appreciate that. But going forward, we will not violate the board policy. And if you get it in less than 24 hours, it will have to be saved till next month. So tonight we do have public comments from Mr. Nathan Haley with the NAACP regarding the Parkwood Mascot. We have Ms. Kimberly Morrison Hansley regarding the Parkwood Mascot and our policy 1-33. We have Ms. Jennifer Stringfellow speaking or sending in comments about the removal of the Parkwood Mascot and it being offensive. We have Michelle Nichols regarding the same topic, removal of the Parkwood Mascot. And last but not least, we later today received comments from Claudia Sandoval regarding her thoughts on the different Facebook, Instagram groups, Black in Piedmont, Marvin, Weddington, and I believe she forgot about Porter Ridge. So all of those public comments are open for anyone to view on our board docs. So please go there to see their statements. And that will bring us to the approval of open session meeting minutes for May 28, June 2nd, and June 12th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, those pass 8-0, and that brings us to consent. Has everyone had a chance to go over all the items in consent?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to reopen schools in the fall. Mr. Gary Sides.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to present an option for consideration and hopefully approval by this board as a reopening plan for UCPS. We all know time is of the essence. School year is set to begin August 17th, and we have not received any directives from the state powers that be, governor's office, State Board of Education, et cetera. And I think this is another opportunity for UCPS to show its leadership. Other districts are starting to take action, so I think now is the time, which would give our staff ample time, not ample time, but would give our staff time to prepare. I have several caveats to this proposal. Number one, as we have discussed in the curriculum committee, staff is developing a virtual curriculum for grades 3 to 12. Moving forward, under my reopening proposal, any parent of any grade level that feels it's best for their child for whatever reason would be encouraged to utilize this virtual option. Number two, our elementary and middle schools will utilize the before mentioned option A as outlined by the governor in school classes with the appropriate safety protocols. Number three, our high schools will utilize option B, 50% capacity with a rotation of in-class and virtual studies. Several caveats I'd just like to add to this. There should be a means for students without access to the internet, special trades classes or our EC classes, or other students where such a rotation might cause a hardship to apply for 100% in-class option. Students and staff would need to utilize proper PPE and social distancing and other safety procedures as possible. And under this option, I would also recommend that siblings should be included in the same rotation. Now, the safety, we can all agree the safety of our students is a primary concern, and staff as well. So there will no doubt be some changes. It won't be school as normal. Visitor and volunteer access may be limited. Teacher-parent meetings, site-based team meetings, staff meetings recommended to be virtual. PPE and social distancing should be enforced as appropriate. Attendance in high school athletic events, the capacity for, if it's allowed by the State Athletic Association, that is not our call for high school athletics, but if approved, I would recommend that there are limitations on attendance to be able to provide safety for spectators. I make this motion with every confidence that Dr. Houlihan and our staff, in collaboration with our principals, can develop the necessary protocols for a safe and successful outcome. As we all are aware, over the past few years, UCPS has devoted significant efforts and resources into the social and emotional well-being of our students. Now I believe a return to the classroom setting is an important part of that effort. Madam Chairman, I propose this plan in the form of a motion, and I'll be glad to repeat the outline if you'd like.
Was this discussing curriculum?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
It's basically, just to reiterate, it's basically three options. We will have the virtual option for anyone that feels that is best for his or her student or students. Our elementary and middle schools will utilize option A with the appropriate safety measures. High schools will utilize option B, which is a 50% capacity on a rotating basis as best devised by staff. That is my motion.
And I just want to remind everyone, he would require a second in order for us to discuss or ask any questions.
I would also like to make the motion that we send this to curriculum to have it looked over and get some numbers back with busing and everything as it regards to this.
So, Mr. Helms, you're making a second motion, but not
That's
a
correct.
second.
That's
An
correct, the second
additional motion.
An additional motion.
I believe my motion needs to be first.
An additional suggestion is he's making is send it back to curriculum. And I guess, I know we're waiting for a second, but I assume Dr. Houlihan was going to talk about plans for reopening, not tonight completely, but I don't know how this all fits in together. And I guess my question too is about busing, is how we make this work.
Okay, so I have two motions on the floor. I want to recognize Mr. Sides first. Does anyone want to offer Mr. Sides a second? Hearing none, Mr. Sides, your motion fails. So I would like to acknowledge Mr. Helms has a motion on the floor. I believe, Matt, you wanted to send this to curriculum or just fit?
It's curriculum first, and then if it was recommended from curriculum, go to SPIT committee.
Okay, and do you want to restate your motion?
It's basically everything that Gary outlined if he wants to repeat it.
Okay,
And send that to curriculum to get the numbers based off everything, busing, capacity, and then if it's recommended from curriculum, send it over to the SPIT committee.
okay, do we have a second?
I will offer a second.
I'm sorry, was that Mr. Sides?
Yes.
Okay, so we can open the floor for any questions or comments regarding sending this to curriculum.
Gary,
I would like to hear from Dr. Houlihan and what he thinks of the idea and if he thinks staff is prepared to do this August 17th.
Before we turn this over to Dr. Houlihan, I believe Ms. Sturdivant has a question.
How soon will parents need to apply to be a part of, to participate? To choose if they want to go into the classroom or to do this remotely?
So Ms. Merrill, if you don't mind, I'll chime in on this.
Okay.
On June 30th, I believe we presented to the curriculum committee one part of our proposed reopening plan, which is, as Mr. Sides alluded to, a virtual option. We're still working through the details of that. This week, I'm meeting with principals as well as our teacher representatives that are part of our professional advisory council to really look at the different models of A, B, C, and what I will be referring to as a model D or a plan D, which would be a virtual academy, school within a school for grades 3 through 12. The proposal Mr. Sides mentioned is new to me. I don't have the answers on how the logistics would work on that and would need to do some additional research with staff on that model. And talking with board leadership, I would like to consider having a specialty called meeting with the board as soon as next week, if possible. We believe that we'll have our proposed recommendations for reopening as soon as Tuesday evening. And that's kind of the timeline that we were looking at to really kind of let the board and the public know as to what are our recommendations and considerations under Plan A, B, C, and D. As a reminder, the current requirements are based on what the governor's decision is with regards to schools reopening. School districts can choose to have a more restrictive approach. In other words, if the option is Plan B, which is the 50% capacity or less, school districts can choose to do remote, but they cannot choose to go past that. They cannot choose an option A. And so we're still working through the fine print details on our proposed reopening plans. And I hope to be able to present that to the public and the board next week, if possible. And if that works with the schedule of the board, hopefully before Wednesday evening. So Mr. Sides' recommendation and sending this to the SPIT committee and then curriculum, or vice versa, curriculum, then SPIT. I do know that our parents are anxiously waiting for answers. We've been working very hard on all the different options because this is going to be very challenging, and we all acknowledge that. And so that's kind of the timeline that we're working on right now, and that would be my proposal as to how to move forward with kind of our next steps.
So do you think you can have a curriculum and possibly a SPIT meeting between now and next Wednesday?
We can, if the motion on the floor is to review Mr. Sides' request and look at the ability to handle this logistically with transportation, et cetera, I would propose that maybe we have a curriculum and or a SPIT committee possibly as early as Monday or Tuesday to review kind of staff's recommendations on how that might work. But I also want to say that there's more details that we need to research based on Mr. Sides' recommendation and also the feedback that we have gotten from parents, teachers, and principals on this same subject. So I'm happy to have those committee meetings if that's what the board would like for us to do. No problem.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board on this motion? Okay, no questions. Then we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
People are
Nay.
still muted. People are still muted.
Okay, Donna, did you get that vote? Okay, so we're gonna start over because everyone's on mute. So all those in favor of the motion, hold your hand up and say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, all those opposed, hold your hand up and say nay.
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 Christina, nay.
Okay, Christina is a nay. Matt,
Yes, it was, yes,
So
you
we're
were
sitting
you
do
were
nothing.
affirmative? Yes.
affirmative, yes.
Okay, so Donna, what is that vote?
I have Mr. Sides and Mr. Helms voting affirmative. I have Mrs. Merrill, Mr. Morale, and Mrs. Helms voting in favor, voting opposing, I'm sorry. I did not get Ms. Heintel's vote.
No,
No. So we are missing
Donna, I was a yes.
Ms. Sturdivant.
I don't think we have time to go back to fit and to curriculum before we need to make, if Dr. Houlihan, sorry.
What was Mr. Price's vote? Donna, did you get Mr. Price's vote?
Yes.
He was yes?
Yes.
Okay, do we have all votes and what is the number?
I do not have Ms. Sturdivant. Candace Sturdivant.
He voted yes.
Yes. I'm missing one person.
You should have 8 votes.
Who am I missing? Todd.
Gary,
Oh, and Mr. Sides is a yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Sides is a yes.
So I have 4-4.
So I was afraid that was a tie vote. So that means the motion dies, correct, Ms. Morris? That means the motion dies, 4-4. Okay, so are there any other comments or questions about reopening from the board?
I'd like to see,
Sit here what Kathy had to say.
I was saying that before, you mean? I was saying that I didn't vote yes because we don't have time to go back to 2 committees before we go to, if it was just going back to curriculum, I would have been fine with it. But I would also, I mean, we have to have a plan, and parents are waiting for a plan, and we're, what, 5 weeks out right now from school starting on August 17th. So I'm anxious to get some sort of plan from curriculum or for whoever next week to get it on. I mean, we just got to let parents know what the plan is.
Can I
I know the governor.
Can I make an alternative motion? To refer this plan and whatever else staff has to a joint curriculum split meeting Monday.
But that would have but you can't do that because it would be a majority of the board. So you'd have, and I should let our lawyer talk, but that would be a majority of the board. We can't do that. So if the motion is for it to go back to curriculum to discuss, I can support that, but I can't support 2 different committees. So, I mean, if this is a discussion, you guys had a discussion last week about reopening at a top of the trees thing, right? If we want to send it back to curriculum for Dr. Houlihan and his staff's ideas and your ideas, Gary, so you can discuss them at curriculum before they go to a specially called meeting, I would be fine with that. I just think it's going to be very difficult to get 2 committees together. That's all I'm
Agree.
So just out of curiosity, if you just had a curriculum meeting, did we not have enough information to discuss this last week at curriculum?
And I came up with this since curriculum.
Okay. So,
Would Dr.
You want to just schedule another curriculum meeting or?
How about a motion, how about an alternative motion to refer this and any other options devised by staff to curriculum with a specially called meeting on Monday?
I don't think you need a motion to do this. Can't you just call a curriculum meeting for next week?
Well, I don't want to go through a curriculum committee meeting and then everybody says, no, it didn't go through spit, so I'm not voting for it. Let's have some consensus.
Okay.
I'm good with that. I'll second that.
Is everybody else good with?
Dr. Houlihan, I have a question.
Yes.
When are you meeting with staff and parents, et cetera?
I'm meeting with our teacher representative groups and our principals on Thursday. So what I would ask is that if the curriculum committee would like to meet, I would ask that we schedule that for Tuesday at the earliest, and ask for if it pleases the board leadership and the board, to have a specialty called meeting on Tuesday evening following the curriculum committee, and we'll be happy to work with Mr. Sides and the committee to schedule that committee meeting on Tuesday.
Is everybody comfortable with that?
I just want everyone to know that I will not be able to attend because I will be away with my family. So I will not be available. So Mrs. Hinetail can run the meetings.
A special meeting?
Yes.
Other comments? Is everybody else good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, so I will let Dr. Houlihan work with staff to get that scheduled. And then he can work with Mrs. Hinetail to coordinate a special called meeting.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to policies for review.
Yes, good evening, members of the board. We have 6 policies for your review, as well as 1 administrative guideline. If anyone has any questions regarding any of those policies or the administrative guideline, I can try and answer those for you now.
I think we skipped over the superintendent's report too.
You know what? I wrote over top of it. Dr. Houlihan, would you like to give your report?
Sure, thank you. I have several items of good news to report tonight. Number one, our media services team has found a way to keep books in the hands of our elementary students this summer. On Thursdays in July, parents can visit 10 locations to pick up books for their elementary students. And parents, we want you to please check your email and look for a Peach Jar flyer for details. Information is also located on our website and social media pages. We have a wonderful partner who is helping us with this called Promising Pages, and want to say thank you to them for providing the books for our students. So that's a really great thing. Secondly, as everyone probably is aware, our athletics are back. UCPS began voluntary practices yesterday with very strict health and safety guidelines. Having our students on our fields is really fantastic and something we've not seen in a while. We absolutely will continue to monitor the practices each day to make sure everyone who attends remains safe. I want to give a special thank you this evening to Atrium Health Union, who has stepped up to help our school nutrition services department. The hospital held a meal service for the community last week through the July 4th holiday. And in total, just in 1 week, the Atrium team served meals to over 2,200 students and over 4,500 meals in all. I also want to let the public and the board know they also plan to repeat this for 2 full weeks during the weeks of August 3rd through the 14th. So thank you to Mike Lutz and thank you to Atrium Health Union for all of your support. As we just touched base about reopening schools, was on my prepared comments tonight. For months now, our teams have been working around the clock to look at plans for reopening. With health and safety at the forefront, it is going to be quite a challenge to connect all the dots and to put all the pieces in place to provide safe learning and work environments This is certainly a complicated process. As was mentioned, we talked about this briefly with the curriculum committee last week, and I want to thank that committee for acknowledging the Herculean effort that is really taking place right now with our staff to think through. We know, as we mentioned just a minute ago, that parents, employees, and students are waiting patiently. We are still referring to the state guidance for reopening in June. If you're not familiar with the Lighting Our Way Forward document, that is kind of the state's roadmap. Again, we look forward to releasing our plans next week. And I ask that everyone please stay tuned and stay patient and stay healthy. And finally, I want to give a thank you to the board as we close out the prior school year and really look ahead to reopening of schools. I want to thank our board and board leadership for your ongoing support. We have certainly accomplished so much over the last 4 years, and I look forward to continuing that success and to building on these accomplishments for years to come. We know that next year will be even more different, perhaps than ever before. It will be a huge adjustment to our families. Your support means a lot to our team, our principals, our teachers. Again, we want to say thank you for your dedication, to the board and to board leadership for your work, and thank you for your valued contributions as a member of Team UCPS. So board members, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Houlihan. Okay, that brings us to policies for review. Mrs. Morris?
Yes. Good evening again. We have 6 policies for your review this evening, as well as 1 administrative guideline. And if anyone has any questions about any of those, I'm glad to try and answer them for you.
Are there any questions?
I have
Matt?
I have one question about the administrative guideline for the mascot change. It doesn't necessarily match up with the existing policy 133 with the expenses related to name change.
No, because this would be an approval by the board for the mascot change, whereas it's not necessarily from a group as in the name change sponsor. And that was why there was the difference.
So just to be clear, we have policy 1-33 on naming schools and facilities. And then we have an administration guideline and application for naming schools and facilities. And this is a new administration guideline for naming mascots. So we will have 2 administrative guidelines under policy 1-33.
That's correct.
Should we make sure that the name of policy 1-33 says naming schools, facilities, and mascots as the top heading?
I can make that conforming change, yes.
And I guess, can we go back to Mr. Helms' comment? I think what he's talking about is if somebody were to fill out this form and ask for the mascot to be changed in the future or at one of our schools, who's responsible for the expenses? So if a group, like a naming group of a school, they have to pay for the change at the school, correct?
They have to pay.
Isn't that what the?
Yes.
I think that's what Mr. Helms is referring to with respect to that. Mr. Helms?
That's correct.
Well, I'm sorry, that's what I thought I was answering. It's that it's a different process because the naming of a school versus the mascots. So because it's a more universal change because it's really naming of the facility or whatever was just a component. And you're probably not going to have a situation where you're changing the name of an entire school based on the prior one.
I just wanted to make sure that I heard you correctly. Okay, thank you.
That was the discussion. We can certainly add that provision if the board wants to. That's certainly your call.
And is there no time frame? I mean, what's stopping anybody from changing it year to year?
Well, ultimately, the board would have to approve it. So that would then, you all would be the ones policing that decision-making process.
Okay.
Right, but are we saying every time somebody fills out a form and submits it to a principal, he has to call a committee and start the review process every time a form is filled out and submitted?
That's what the current process is for both changing the name of the facility and the mascot. So they would have to do a committee meeting, and then ultimately it would come to Spit in this case, and the superintendent, then to the board for a decision.
But doesn't it have to go through their site-based committee first before it ever comes to central office or the board?
Yes, it's a school level committee, correct.
So the application process would begin at the school level.
Correct.
And if it passes out of the site base and those steps, then it would eventually work its way to the board. And I believe we've gone through a similar process a few years ago. I believe, was it Western Union, Michelle, with the renaming of a gymnasium?
That's correct.
And unfortunately, I don't think, I think it passed out of all of our committees, but I don't think the community ever moved forward with it.
All right, so just for clarification, does it go to the superintendent or the principal first? Because I'm reading it goes to the superintendent and he recommends it to the principal.
The application comes to the superintendent's office. It's then sent down to the principal, who's responsible for developing the committee, and the members of the committee are enumerated in the guidelines. And then the committee then makes a recommendation back up to the superintendent and the SPTT committee, who then make a recommendation to the board. So for simplicity's sake, comes to the superintendent to make sure the process begins, but the superintendent does not take action in the beginning of the process other than to be the filtering entity of the applications. And part of that is when we had the Western Union, as Mrs. Merrill indicates, we had another group come right after and ask for the same name change. And so I was able to communicate to them when the superintendent provided to me to say, we've already approved this change. And that way the principal then didn't have to start another committee. We were able to, having a more historical perspective than perhaps a school might have, we were able to facilitate that process.
Okay.
And this was just for first review. So this will go back to the policy.
Administrative guidelines just come for the board for review. They don't come a second time for approval.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we will move now to Parkwood High School mascot. So we did discuss this in the policy committee, and if you look at public comments, we have received several public comments. I've received a lot of emails, and board members, you can speak up if you've received emails. I have heard from many Parkwood alumni and people in the Parkwood cluster. We did discuss this in the policy. I'm sorry, who was that? Who spoke?
I think it was just an echo or a feedback. If you want to continue, it's fine.
Okay, so the policy committee did want to bring to the full board to have the full board have a discussion about policy 133, not the administration guideline that's listed above, but the fact that the existing Parkwood High School mascot, Rebels, if it's in violation of our existing policy 1-33. And Michelle, do you mind reading policy 1-33 for us?
I'm sorry, let me just pull it. The language that you're talking about is, let me just pull that up real quickly. I'm sorry.
And I may even have it right here. No.
Apologize, I closed out my policies.
That's okay. I may have it.
I have it if you'd like me to read it. No.
That's
yes,
fine,
go
absolutely.
ahead. I've got it. Mrs. Hightail, you can go ahead. Mrs. Hightail, you're on mute.
Sorry, it's in policy 1-33 administrative guidelines A, which has been in effect since a while ago. It's the last paragraph on the second page. All mascots, nicknames, and descriptors, including symbols, banners, flags, pennants, or similar identifiers used by a school sports teams, extracurricular clubs, curricular clubs, or organizations shall respect cultural differences and values. The board prohibits the use of any race or ethnic group as a mascot or nickname.
Thank you. And I just want to say that this policy, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Morris, but this policy has been in effect since 2002.
Yeah, the policy itself has been, and those administrative guidelines have been in place since 2016, I believe.
Right. So this is something that I can only speak for me personally. We have had dozens or more emails, and tonight we had public comments, and I've spoken to many alumni and families out in the Parkwood cluster, and they brought to my attention policy 1-33, which again has been a board policy for many years, 18 years or longer. And I'm just going to go on the record that when this was brought to my attention, that upon reading this, the existing Rebels mascot would be in violation of our board policy. And I will open it up for the rest of the board to discuss this. So that is my position. I believe it is in violation. And I believe it's something that this board needs to discuss and make a decision tonight if we are going to, if the rest of the board agrees that this is in violation of 133, let's have an open discussion about it. And we need to decide tonight if we're going to allow the school to continue with the word rebels or not. And I will turn it over to the rest of the board.
I agree that Rebels is in violation and it is going against board policy.
Anyone else?
I was going to chime in. I've heard both sides. I'm in the Parkwood community, so I've heard both sides. I guess my question is, do we have is it the Rebels name or the mascot?
To be honest with you, I'm not even sure they have a mascot anymore because I'm not from Union County. Let's put that out on the table. So I can only go off what people here in Union County tell me. And it is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that the community met in a site-based format in public meetings when Dr. Ed Davis was superintendent, I think around 2008, 2009. And it's my understanding that during that time when this exact same conversation came up, that both parties or both sides agreed to a compromise. And that in the compromise, they got rid of the Confederate soldier that was part of their logo or imaging. And again, Matt, if you say that you're from the Parkwood area, I will certainly defer to you, but that is what I have been told.
That sounds about right from what I understand.
I was also told that Parkwood changed their colors and eliminated the Confederate soldier image But for whatever reason, the term rebels has continued. And I would be happy to let anyone else speak, or I'm just going to continue talking.
I was waiting
No.
for Matt.
No, I turn it over to you.
Was Matt done?
Well, we do have a cost associated with this also, right?
I don't want to address costs right now. I want to address the board policy. And
Okay.
if we think, and if we think it's in violation or not, and then we can discuss money, because I don't think money is as important as one student or one family or one community. I would be more interested in the board addressing their board policy 1-33.
So Melissa, I'll go. I mean, clearly in reading the school symbol section of that, which, you know, Ms. Morris just read to us, I mean, it clearly is offensive, as we've seen the citizens voice their opinions on, that it does disrespect or does not respect cultural differences and values. So, you know, with that, I do feel that we are in violation of that policy.
Thank you, Ms.
my opinion.
Morial. Anyone else?
Me. I agree with that as well. I think that we've heard from some Parkwood families and stuff that they believe that even though that they had this compromise back in 2009, the name rebel still conjures up the same thing as if that it was still the Confederate soldier, and it's they believe that it's offensive and that lots of teams across the country right now are changing their names in the Major League Baseball and the NFL and in college sports as well. So this is the right time to have this conversation. We've been hearing about it. I mean, I've only been on the board for 4 years now almost, and we've heard about it like every year or two since then. So this is not going away.
And
I
it
will
is
say
in
that the
violation of
symbol-
policy, nor should it go away until the board addresses it. Mr. Morial?
I agree with you on that, Mrs. Merrill, that's why we're here to do it.
Exactly. Again and again, right.
Yes.
I will just say though that the symbol, I think, is very tastefully done, and it could be utilized. Like the symbol itself is not synonymous with the name, right? So I
you're
don't look at
referring
that
to the
symbol.
P and the sword?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't look at that and see rebel. So when we talk about, renaming the mascot, I think it is definitely something that could be done without a lot of rigor, without a lot of, I know you didn't want to talk about expense. I don't think the symbol needs to change. I think there's a lot of other mascots that could be synonymous with that symbol to where it could be a pretty seamless change.
I think the symbol is beautiful, and my question is that the symbol Union County Public Schools came up with in 2008 or 9 when they dropped the Confederate soldier? I don't know. So that's one thing, but I will share with you, when I started getting emails a few weeks ago, obviously the very first thing I did is I went to the Parkwood website, and they have a beautiful banner across the top, beautiful dark blue, black, white, the symbol that Mr. Morial just addressed, the Parkwood P, the sword. And I thought, oh, well, that's nice. There's no mention of rebels. And so I went down the left-hand side of the website and I clicked on, administration, principals, assistant principals, and the banner remained the same, the P with the sword, until I clicked on athletics. And when I clicked on athletics, the banner changed from the homepage to a completely different banner that said Parkwood Rebels. And so I thought, okay, that's what we're talking about. How can the athletics website differ from the homepage and everything else that's out there? So that was the first thing I noticed. And I think we brought it to Mrs. Morris's attention and several others. I mean, that may have been corrected by now, but up until last week, when you went down the left-hand side and clicked on all the tabs, the banner did change when you got to athletics. So then I went to Facebook and their Twitter accounts, and I started looking at all of, their cheer, football, baseball, cross country, and looked at all the different sports to try and find, okay, what's on their jerseys, because that's going to be an expense too if the booster club has to, replace all the jerseys. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but when I started looking through all of the photographs that I could find out on social media, the cross country team, their jersey, which I was very familiar with, was blue. It simply said Parkwood. The cheer team appeared to have the P, the P and the sword. I did not see Rebels on football or soccer, but then when I found a baseball picture, and that was different. I don't know how old the photograph was for baseball. It may have been an old photograph, but that is the only time I found a jersey that said Rebels.
I see a softball one too with that.
You saw softball,
And
okay.
cheerleading, I believe, has it also, and I'm not sure about football, if the alternative has it or not.
The cheerleading that I saw, maybe it was a different squad, but the cheerlead, was it travel or the school or basketball or football? But and we can look into that, Matt, but the one I saw only had the P on it.
I think the majority either have the P or Parkwood on it, but there are some alternatives that do have Rebels, I believe.
So you're saying that the cheerleaders do have Rebels on it?
I've seen some pictures with them, yes.
Okay.
And I think the band uniforms are up this year to be, for them to buy new band uniforms and equipment this year as well. So that's not on the list, but there's a reason it's not. It's because they're in the rotation to get new uniforms.
So all of that to say, I don't think there, I was under the assumption it would not be an enormous cost, because it did not appear that Rebels was on many of our uniforms. And when we went to policy, we were provided an email with the former president of the Athletic Booster Club, I believe was her position. And she said, if I'm not mistaken, that when they were, when it was time to buy new uniforms, they were going away and they were not having Rebels put on the uniforms. So, so that was one cost. I wasn't, uniforms and teams was not something I was very concerned about until I saw a reporter on the news either last night or today. My nights and days are starting to get really messed up because I'm always awake. But there was a reporter in the last 24 hours covering the story, and she was at Parkwood High School standing in front of a fence, and it said Rebels. So with the little cups or the plastic things. So so that was a time that, I saw that. So it's really hit or miss. I know that the welding class has built like a 10 or 15 foot soldier or Confederate soldier that is on display somewhere in the school. I don't know where, but I've heard about that.
I think if we're planning to remove the Rebel, the school needs a fresh start. This is 2020, and I do understand there is there is a cost, but I'm sure that our students, I tie Rebel with hatred. I tie it with it defies authority. they need a fresh start. Remove the rebel. Granted, I went to Forest Hills, but I think they need a
You know, and you bring up a good point, Ms. Sturdivant. When you talk about a cost, I'm going to share with you what the cost is. We have a community member that if this individual, if we were having our meeting at the PDC, and if this community member came into our meeting, almost every single one of us would smile when this person entered the room, and half of us would get out of our seat to go hug them. So let me tell you what it's cost this person that every single one of us on this Zoom tonight admires and respects. This person said that he was tortured as a child at Parkwood, being called names and being humiliated. He was called names that I do not even feel comfortable saying on this Zoom meeting. This person came from a very good family and said that every time they were tortured, humiliated, called completely racist, horrible names, that in order to continue playing ball and have friends at the school, he just had to smile and laugh it off. So when we start trying to put a dollar figure or a cost, I am happy to share this person's testimony or his message that he sent to me, and I'll show you what it's cost him and his family. I am not going to disclose this person, but any board member who would like to have a copy of this, I am more than happy to share his story of what it was like growing up in Parkwood. And in order just to go along, to get along and to play ball and to have friends, he took those words and he smiled and he continued on, and every single person on this Zoom meeting would call him a friend. So that's my feeling on cost, and you can't put a dollar figure on it. And I'll just end with that.
So I make a motion that we remove the rebel from the sign. If that can be a motion.
That is a motion.
I do have a couple of questions.
We need a second so we can discuss.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, Matt, now we can just open the floor and discuss anything and everything.
Okay. I guess for me, I'm not opposed to keeping it, and I'm also not opposed to changing it. But I guess my question is, if we followed the current administrative guidelines, it would go through the SPIT committee for a name to be determined, or whatever the site base will come up with, or community, and have community input. I guess for me, it's hard to change it without knowing what the name would be. Because there is, I know you get.
My understanding of the administrative guideline is that it goes under schools without a mascot if this motion was to pass tonight. So it would go to the school, and the principal would survey stakeholders.
So if I heard
and it will come back with a name.
Her motion is and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe her motion was to drop the name Rebels. And if the school would like to fill out an application and to begin the process of name, they can either keep the P and keep the sword and roll on. But if Parkwood, if this motion passes, then Parkwood would need to use the application approved tonight to begin working on a new mascot, or they could just move forward with the P and the sword. It is completely up to Parkwood.
Yeah,
Ask a
well, I guess
question.
for me, it comes down, there is a cost associated with both options. If you keep the P and the sword, it's a lower cost. If you do a wholesale change, it's a significant cost. So without knowing what the name would be, I couldn't vote for that right now.
Well, as a board member, you're going to have to vote. I don't think you can recuse yourself.
Could I
No,
ask
no, yeah, no, that's-
clarification? I'm sorry. Could I ask a clarification? Is that a yes? Am I muted? Yeah. Can I ask a question about associated with the costs? There is the new mascot only and new mascot logo. Exactly who is responsible for either or both, whichever route is decided upon? Are those costs going to be absorbed by UCPS, or is that the responsibility of the athletic association in the school? Because I mean, you're talking about repainting gyms and things like that. Do we have a feel for how that would be addressed?
My initial thought is that if this motion passes, then Rebel would most likely need to be removed from hallways or signs or whatever at the cost of the district, because it is in violation of our existing policy. But if they go through the process to name a new mascot, I think they would have to follow the board policy and the administrative guideline. And I actually would defer to Mrs. Morris to correct anything I just said. And you're on mute. There you go.
They go through, as Ms. Heintel said, the new or schools without a mascot process. And I think that's a stakeholder survey and involving students, parents, et cetera, in determining a mascot. And then it'll be up to the district whether you're willing to fund the cost of the change, since every other school has a mascot, or whether you push that down to the athletic associate school. And Mark may have more information on that, Mr. Strickland, than I do.
So we're not.
How long time frame? I'm sorry, go ahead, Gary.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Christine.
How long a time frame are we talking about to have for Parkwood to create a committee, do a survey, et cetera? Do we have a time frame in mind?
There's
I
no
think Dr. Houlihan addressed that in our policy meeting last week. Was it 60 days from the time they start an application? They needed to have something done within 60 days.
No,
I thought it was 45.
45.
Oh,
but
45, I'm sorry.
but it's not mirrored in the schools without a mascot. So maybe we can change that so that it would be 45 days or something like that as well.
And I think this is highly unusual, and we don't need to confuse it with a new school that doesn't have a mascot versus a school that's in violation of the board policy. I think, we need to make sure that we keep this application process, very different from Parkwood, depending on the motion and the second that's on the floor.
So
I guess that the reason that I thought it goes under the first bullet in the new administrative guideline is because if this motion passes, there would be no mascot at the school right now. So it says when a new school is being opened or when there is not a current mascot, this is the procedure. So, but we could, as part of the motion, decide which procedure we like better and go with that if the motion is passed.
I like that.
So will the motion have to clarify if we are just calling for a new mascot and we're leaving it up to the school to decide, well, we have to do a new mascot. Let's go ahead and do a new logo as well. Is that what I'm hearing in the motion?
Well, remember, regardless of what they do, it still has to come to you all for approval. Even if we do it under the schools without a mascot, it still ultimately comes to the board for approval.
Right, but we're not mandating, all we're mandating is that they're going to have to come up with a new mascot. We're not directing them. It would be their choice if they want to do a new mascot and a new logo. Is that correct?
Candace's motion, I think, was just to get rid of the Rebels name. So she didn't go into that kind of detail. So that would be up to her if she wanted to.
And Ms. Sturdivant, you can always make a friendly amendment to your motion, whatever you want to do.
I would like to make an amendment. I would like since the Rebel is tied to the logo, I think the school should have a fresh start.
So
Okay, so meaning they need a new mascot only or a complete name change from Parkwood to a different school? Is that what you're asking? I'd need you to clarify.
No, I'm not, Christina. I am not asking for Parkwood to change the school name. I'm asking that we change the Rebel as well as the logo. The school has a fresh start, but I am not asking Parkwood to change the name of the school. So I hope that clarifies the story.
That clarifies it. Yes, thank you.
So Ms. Sturdivant, you're referring to the P and the sword that needs to go away as well?
The new mascot logo.
Yes. Thank you.
Ms. Merrill, I would like to withdraw my second. I was under the impression that we were dropping the Rebels name due to board policy 1.33 and that we were not making any changes to the symbol or anything like that, and that would go through the normal process. So I'll withdraw my second.
Okay.
I was under the impression we were dropping the name Rebels, Ms. Sturdivant. I did not know that the letter P for Parkwood was the problem.
The logo is attached to the name, correct? I mean, the logo is attached to the symbol, to the Rebel, correct?
But it shows a sword and a P and
but there's also 4 other schools that have that too.
Yeah.
I think Porter Ridge might have it.
Cavaliers.
Cavaliers.
Yep. So I don't think swords are offensive per se.
But the sword is attached to, we're talking about Parkwood, correct?
Yes.
We're talking about Parkwood. And I just want to clarify, the emails that I received had nothing to do with the logo. It was about the mascot, being called Rebels. So I just want to go on record that everything I got was about being called Rebels. They did not have a problem with the P or the logo.
Yeah, because going back to the cost, if you change the logo and everything, what we got from staff was $271,000 versus $81,000 for keeping the logo the same. So that's pretty significant.
I thought that the logo is new, right? That is not.
That was in 2009. Yeah.
2009. That's what I thought. Okay.
So the logo is new.
Yeah, that's a newer logo.
2009, correct?
So, Ms. Merrill, I think there's a motion on the table and there's no second, but we're asking a lot of questions.
Okay, so a second was withdrawn. Do we have any other motions regarding Parkwood High School and the mascot?
I'll make a motion.
Tonight's agenda was about the mascot.
Right, so I'll make a motion that we drop the Rebels name from the Association of Parkwood High School, and as it's in violation of board policy 1.33.
May I add an amendment to your motion?
I'll entertain one. Yep.
Okay, I would like to propose that we ask the county for a supplemental appropriation to cover all the school's costs in the new mascot only column of some $81,780,000.
Before we do that, I would hope that we looked at our own budget to see if we had money before we went to the county.
And I,
Go ahead.
But I guess going back, I think the
okay,
community
we
needs to
have
have
a
input.
motion on the floor. If we have a second, we can open the floor for further discussion.
Okay, Mr. Morial, you're supposed to get rid of the rebels, but to leave the P and the swords,
And
correct?
it's just to drop the Rebels name as
No
it's a
longer
violation
use
of board policy.
rebels.
I'll second that.
I'll second it.
Okay, Christina.
Okay, so have at it, board. We have a motion and a
Yeah.
second. Christina?
Ma'am. No, I said I second Joe's motion.
Okay,
Could I offer my amendment?
yes.
Again, my amendment is to request a supplemental special appropriation from the county for $81,780 to cover the cost if this motion passes.
I agree with Ms. Hinetail. I think we need to look at our own funds before we go back and ask the county for more money.
I think we could take that back to finance committee first and have a discussion about it there before we go to the county.
And
That
if
was going to
I-
be,
Mhm.
sorry, Ms. Merrill, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Drew.
I was just going to recommend that based on the motion on the floor, my interpretation is that if this were to pass, the administrative guidelines under new mascots would kick in under the 45-day guideline and procedure. Once a new mascot and or logo were to be recommended to me, I would bring that to the to the finance committee first. Spit and finance probably, to look at both the approval of the new recommendation and the financial piece on how we would pay for, whether that is just the logo or the logo and anything with regards to symbol or facilities. So that would be my interpretation of the next steps of the administration and the school leadership to move this forward if this were to pass.
That's fine. I'll withdraw my amendment.
Joe, do you mind restating your motion?
Sure, my motion is to drop the Rebels name from the Association of Parkwood High School as it's in violation of board policy 1.33.
I'll second.
And just to be clear, your motion is that we would drop rebels, but keep the logo, which is a P and a sword.
My motion is just to drop the name Rebels
Okay,
from the
I got
Association
you.
of the high school. So
Okay, I got you.
yes, the P and the sword would remain, and hopefully it could be, used for another mascot that goes along with that logo. As I did say earlier, I think it's very tastefully done. And there's a number of other mascots that could go with that to save costs.
Okay, so we had a motion and Mrs. Hinetail, you seconded, correct?
I think Candace Ms. Sturdivant just seconded.
Okay, I'm
But-
sorry.
I think Ms.
Right,
Helms
correct.
did it first, but
Ms.
sounds like we
Helms
got-
did first.
Helms.
I seconded it first.
yeah.
At the original time it was made, Mr. Morial made the motion and Ms. Helms seconded the motion. And then when you asked it to be restated, then Ms. Sturdivant.
Joe, can you repeat that, please? So that not only I can hear your motion, the board as well as the community.
Sure. My motion is to drop the name Rebels from the Association of Parkwood High School as it is in violation of board policy 1.33.
Okay. Okay, are Are there any other comments? I'm prepared to call a vote.
I was just gonna say for me, with the dropping the rebel, it still comes back if I had a name to go, what would change too? Because for probably 45 days, maybe the start of the season, if they do athletics this year, they're going to be the Parkwood TBD, to be determined. So,
Well,
I would
Mr. Helms,
rather have
When I play
I
somebody-
understand what you're, go ahead, Joe.
I was just gonna say, if I was going to play Parkwood, I'd be going to play Parkwood. I wouldn't be playing the Rebels. I wouldn't be
No, they're playing
Pirates.
yeah,
I
they're
wouldn't
playing
be
Parkwood
the
anyway, but
Mavericks. Yeah, exactly. So you're just going to play Parkwood.
When I go to track and cross-country meets, all of their jerseys say Parkwood.
Does it have the logo as well?
Some of the newer uniforms have the P, but the cross-country uniforms only say Parkwood and the cross-country symbol.
Yeah, the majority of uniforms just have Parkwood or the P logo with the sword.
I honestly had not seen Rebels anywhere until I saw the news reporter on the campus reporting on it, and there it was. Because all of the athletics I had ever seen was the P or the Parkwood.
And just for clarification too, there is no mascot. It's just the name currently. The mascot was dropped.
That is correct. That was the Confederate soldier was dropped in 2008 or 9.
I think it was actually before that too, if I'm not mistaken.
I spoke to a couple of county commissioners, and that's how it was explained to me.
Yeah.
Under
'Cause
Ed
it was
Davis.
It was this god awful logo back in the day.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments for clarification, I am ready to call a vote. And just because this is so sensitive, I am going to go in district order. Mrs. Sturdivant, do you vote? The motion was to drop the Mascot Rebels. Do you vote yay or nay?
To drop the Mascot Rebels?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. Matt Helms, you're District 2.
I vote nay, just for the fact that we don't have a current name to change it to.
District 3, Gary Sides.
No.
No. Melissa Merrill votes yes for District 4. Joe Morial.
Yes.
Kathy Heintel.
Yes.
Christina Helms.
Yes.
Todd Price.
Yes.
Okay, the yeses have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The noes have 3. The motion passes. The Parkwood mascot named Rebel is dropped. So the vote was 5-3 to drop Rebels. So we will, I guess Dr. Houlihan or whoever will notify the Parkwood High School and walk them through the steps of what their options are going forward.
Yeah, I think it was actually 6-2, Melissa.
Hold on.
That's what, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you very much for that. 6-2. I apologize. I need more sleep.
To answer your question, yes.
6-2.
Sorry, to answer your question, yes, Miss Morris and I will be in contact with Miss Alley the remaining of this week to walk her through the administrative guidelines and to begin that process as they see fit. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to board vacancy, and I will kick this off by saying that that we are a non-board policy, and we are operating with 8 board members right now. I did accept the resignation of Mr. Travis Kiker, which was an at-large position for the county. And Kathy and I have worked at great lengths, and Michelle Morris and others with the Board of Elections to get clarification, because Mr. Kiker's seat, when he was elected in 2018, it was a partisan election, and this will be our first time filling a vacancy from a partisan seat. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Kathy Heintel, who has been in close contact with the Board of Elections.
Okay, as Ms. Merrill indicated, the seat was elected in 2018. North Carolina Session Law 2017-63 and UCPS Policy 1-1E requires the Board of Education to consult with the County Executive Board of the appropriate political party, in this case, the Union County Republican Party. Mrs. Merrill, the chair of the Union County Board of Education, notified the chair of the Union County Republican Party of the vacancy on July 1, 2020. The Union County Board of Education must consult with the County Republican Party Executive Board, and the Board of Education must appoint the person recommended by the Executive Board within 30 days of the vacancy. Per the Union County Board of Elections, the vacancy is the remainder of the term that expires in 2022. The Union County Republican Party has posted the vacancy and has asked for any registered Republican who is interested in the position to submit a resume and bio to the Union County Republican Party by email at chairman@uniongop.com by July 13th at midnight. The Union County Republican Party has indicated that this matter will be voted on July 16th. That's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
I have a question, just for clarity. When will the term expire?
The term expires at the election in November of 2022, according to the Union County Board of Elections.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and I believe we were notified that the Republican Executive Party is going to be having a special meeting, and they're going to be voting on this on the 16th. Is that correct, Kathy?
That's what I said. Yes, that's correct.
The 16th, right?
Yep,
Okay,
the
thank
16th.
you.
So the deadline for anybody who's interested is the 13th at midnight, and the meeting is on July 16th. Correct.
Very good.
I have a question.
They need to get in touch with Allison Powers. Is that correct?
Yeah, the email is at chairman@uniongop.com. And that would be Allison Powers.
So just for clarity, the individual must be a Republican?
Yes, we're a partisan board, so it was a Republican seat and it has to be filled with a Republican.
Okay, I thought it was partisan. Okay.
Okay, so it depends on when you were elected. If you were elected in 2016, we were nonpartisan. Beginning with the elections in 2018, that became a partisan seat. It changed in 2017.
So again, this is the first vacancy that we've had that falls into that category. All of the vacancies that we've had prior to that, those individuals were elected when it was nonpartisan. So that's when we had an application process, through the board and the SPIT committee, and then the recommendation to the full board. Any other questions? Okay, that was for information only. I will open the floor for board comments.
I have a comment. I would like to thank all the retirees of our school system that didn't really get the retirement party at the end of the year. We appreciate you all. We hope you have a great time in your retirement. I want to especially signify one person or call out one person, Molly Graham. She's finished 45 years, Dr. Houlihan is shaking his head, finished 45 years of teaching this year. And she's a mom of a friend of mine, and I just want to give her a big shout out because 45 years in education, that's amazing. So
board members. Well, I would just like to take this time to recognize all of our outstanding high school principals, assistant principals, guidance counselors, Dr. Houlihan, cabinet staff, Jared McCraw. Our high schools gave an amazing gift to the class of 2020 a week and a half ago. I have received so many calls, thank you cards, letters, pictures from parents and seniors that are so extremely happy that that they have closure on their senior year, and what an amazing job our high schools and our principals, all of our guidance counselors, again, everyone. I saw teamwork. I've been on the board. I've lived in Union County 15 years. I have volunteered in Union County Public Schools for 15 years. I've been on the board for 6 years. And these graduations and seeing the camaraderie and teamwork of all of our principals showing up at each other's graduations to set out seats, set up stages. If the wind was blowing, they were behind the stage trying to hold up the screen and the stage. I have never been so proud of the teamwork that I saw the week of our graduations. And for example, when I was at the Porter Ridge graduation, the Piedmont principal was there, Sun Valley principal, Marvin Ridge principal, and every graduation that we went to, those principals were there for each other, and that was the first time I was like, okay, we've always had, Dr. Houlihan, the first day we interviewed him, he walks into the interview and throws out Team UCPS. And we've carried that forward since you've been with us 3.5 years. But when I saw all of those principals, sometimes in the pouring down rain or covered in sweat, helping each other, I just thought, wow, that's Team UCPS to a whole new level. And I just stand in awe of all 53 schools. But I just want to say a very special thank you to all of our principals who wanted to have graduations on their football fields, and to our 3,400 seniors who wanted to have a traditional graduation. I just want to say my sincerest thank you for a job well done. And I also want to commend Union County Public Schools, all of our coaches, all of our staff that is allowing all of our athletes back to have a socially distanced practice, to all of our coaches and our teams who are out there preparing for the fall. I just want to say, stay well, follow the guidelines, and just know that we're praying for everyone, continued health and safety. And I just could not be more proud to see all of our athletes and our adult leaders out there doing what we're all here for, and that's taking care of our students. And again, normally we would be preparing for a retiree banquet. And so I agree with Mrs. Heintel, to all of our amazing employees that are retiring. with 10, 15, 20, 30, 45 years in Union County Public Schools and to public education. Thank you for gifting us with your service, and we wish you absolutely nothing but the best in your retirement, and thank you so very much.
Miss Merrill,
Yes.
I meant to include, we did not set a date nor time for our community advocacy committee for diversity.
That's right. It is currently that, I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. Sturdivant. So currently, because the board did unanimously approve to move forward with the Citizens Advisory Committee, Dr. Houlihan and his staff are working on a application process, and they are trying to locate a third-party facilitator that would work with these community members and students. And so I don't mind, asking Dr. Houlihan or anyone to speak to where they are in that process in order to put it onto the website for public notice.
So our thought was to, at the next SPTT committee, because I believe that was who this would be referred to as the board committee, that we would bring forth the application, the process, the timeline, and anyone who has either applied or that we have researched and identified to be a third party, either a facilitator or perhaps a co-facilitator for that committee. And so our timeline right now is looking at the end of this month, middle to end of this month, to have a discussion with SPTT to bring forth names for both those who we've researched for consideration for facilitator, and to begin the application, the public application process for those who might want to apply to be on the committee. If that so suits the board, that's kind of the timeline we're looking at right now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or board comments?
Ms. Merrill, if I may.
Yes, yes.
I just want to make a couple quick comments about the Parkwood issue. We as a country are struggling with this issue, not just in Union County. And I understand and certainly respect my colleagues and others, citizens in Union County, that have voiced a strong opinion on this issue. I would just like to make the comment, and I don't mean to preach, but I would hope we get beyond what is on the shirt, what is the sign on the fence. We could have a team mascot of the Saints, and we could still be facing this issue. I think it's a lot deeper than just the choice of mascot. And I applaud your efforts in setting up the Citizens Advisory Committee to delve deeply in this issue and do everything we can to prove, as I feel confident with my other colleagues on this board, that we are determined for an equality of opportunity for every one of our students in UCPS. And I condemn any sort of bullying or derogatory racial comments or discrimination in any of our schools. I don't care what your mascot is. And I applaud your efforts in spearheading this committee. And we need to prove to do more than just removing a mascot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sides. Anyone else for board comments? Hearing none, we will move to announcements.
Yes, I have one announcement. The SPTT committee will meet July 22nd at 7:30 a.m.
Okay, I will announce that policy will meet July 22nd at 9 a.m.
And do I need to say it? The curriculum will be meeting next Tuesday at a time. It will be early.
What's your definition of early? What time?
Well, early enough, 8 o'clock or 9
8
o'clock.
o'clock? Okay.
I'll leave that to Dr. Breedlove. I'll discuss with him first. And then we'll announce that tomorrow.
Okay. Are there any other announcements? Okay, hearing none, I will, let's see, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, board, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Night.
Thank you.
You too.